Pixar animation has been greatly known for its breakthrough in CG animation and maintaining a certain level of quality when it comes to their storytelling. The years of nearly maintaining them throughout all their different films had led into a big payout when it came to the end of the 2010s. With the billion-dollar grosses of nearly all of their films released at the time period and winning Oscar after Oscar, it was then time for a reset point with brand new stories. However, sadly, the financial impact of them was greatly hampered by the COVID-19 pandemic. By the time Lightyear brought the company back into theaters, it didn't garnish the big payoff that Disney and Pixar was hoping for, even for a big name such as Buzz Lightyear. But more times than not, it's actually kids that are the driving force of the movie industry, bringing all sorts of age groups alongside with them. As it was time, whether it was fully agreed upon or not, to bring back another established world for a second go-around, which had huge payouts regardless of how the conversations went for it, and it allowed Pixar to have another go at creating more stories. This is After the Theater for Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2. The latter half of the 2010s treated Pixar very well financially and with loads of rewards to boot. The build-up to the long-awaited sequels was the creme de la creme, but the original stories also balanced out the claims that Pixar was selling out to an extent. The original Inside Out in 2015 arguably kicked off that wave, bolstering the highest-grossing original IP from Pixar at the time in the 2010s. Plus, considering the focal material set up in the first film was enough to lay a foundation for a potential sequel. It would, however, take nearly 5 years before development started, as since then the original director Pete Docter was promoted to become the new big CEO for Pixar. So in turn, a newcomer came in to take over the director's chair, Kelsey Mann, who was selected to helm the follow-up to the original. Garnishing the inspiration from his own childhood, it set the frame for an older Riley and her developing mind to be the focal point for the sequel. The world had its eyes on this film as Pixar's recent releases as well as performance in the box office really came to question, do they still have it? Luckily for Mann, he respected the world that Pete Docter created all those years ago, as well as utilized all of his available resources at Pixar, as he and his team worked diligently through the year to deliver a film that was worthy of being a sequel to this original classic. His team worked diligently without interruptions to have the film ready for all ages to enjoy in the summer of 2024, only in theaters. We pick up 2 years after Riley's move to the Bay Area, as well as the emotions inside of her head finally having a sense of equality between them all while Riley's beginning to go through what many developing children going into teenagers deal with, puberty. I'm so grateful I never got braces. Despite that and the looming fear of going into high school, she is on top of the world, being a star player on her hockey team, having new friends, and having supportive parents as well. That is until when her puberty begins to affect her core emotions, as 4 new ones arrive to push Riley into her next chapter as she arrives into hockey camp, which also will question for all of them, what are the proper next steps for them to go forward? The premise alone honestly feels like the next genuine step for Riley's character and the emotions. Speaking as someone who went through puberty once before, it's a stage of life when you're beginning to exit childhood and finding the first sparks of who you eventually want to grow up to be when you're older. It can be scary, as well as tricky, without falling into the usual tropes of presenting it on screen. But using the same format of presenting the actual actions versus what's going on inside the mind, it balances most times than not on how those awkward decisions are being handled by the emotions, in a way that it makes sense while also having some shades of humor thrown in there. Before getting into the actual emotions, I find it touching just how more Riley is relatable to the older audience this go around. While the last movie was nearly 100% towards kids, this time it was very clear from the get-go that one of the hidden purposes was for the older audience members as well as parents to really get Riley this time. The specific audience, including myself, having been through puberty before and getting to re-witness it more accurately than other projects in media, it brings a certain degree of cringe, which honestly for the first time being stated was warranted and perfect. You want to feel that Riley's overall choices were not smart nor wise to say, and that we all had that collective gasp of groaning, but in an understandable way. We've had our times of that in our lives before, so to see her, in this case more noticeably because of the emotions directing her, it makes you really care for the character even more and wondering what lies for her on the other side of the story. Now onto the emotions, our returning in main group. It was nice to see how the pair-offs worked in this chapter. Last time it was joy and sadness, the two polar opposites of the other, teaming up, while on this go-around it was joy paired up with anger, fear, and disgust. To segue into joy, this film truly showcases to why she is meant to be the leader of the group, as well as to really go for the limits she is pushed towards. In her last journey throughout the mind, she had to really understand her role of pushing Riley forward in her development, but at the same time admitting that Riley needs all of her emotions to bring her forward. Here, it's a little bit of the same in a different way of showing it. This time, maintaining Riley's core needs to stay the same, but at the bare minimum. Witnessing everything anxiety and the other new emotions are doing damages her as she tries to grapple with that truth of change, which is an actual needed part to Riley's growth. As for the other emotions, the quartet of sadness, anger, disgust, and fear are a bit more of the supporting role this time around, reacting to how things are going in the story but not fully being impacted on what's happening. Their core personalities and traits continue here from before, like I said with the latter three spending more time with joy than last time to have a new different banter, and sadness having to deal with the new emotions in certain shades. It is one of those things where there were so many moving pieces to puzzle in, and with joy and anxiety essentially being the two primary emotions in the film, it made sense that the runtime didn't have too much to play with the other characters besides putting them in more comedic relief moments. I would be remiss to not state that when it comes to the voice performance with the core five, they all play correctly from last time. However, fear and disgust were recast ahead of the film due to paid dispute with their originals. I will give Tony Hale and Lisa Lapre credit for making the transition very seamless from the old actors to the new, but I will shade out Disney for not footing their returns as well. Considering how much money this film ended up making, properly paying your original talent should have been a priority here. I get that even when I said their characters aren't being in focus here, but still, you should keep their true voices behind them always. Moving into our new emotions here, for me, I like how unique and specific they were in their personality and placement in the story itself. Anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and ennui were written and done all differently to add the already established emotions to their rapport. I view them a bit like how the original group of emotions were at the start of the first film in terms of their dynamic, sans a version of sadness. Anxiety leading them, believing what they think is correct for Riley in this new chapter of her life. The echoes here are paralleling, as when it was Joy in this position last time, she was more on making sure Riley was happy without any input from others, which is the same here with Anxiety ensuring that Riley is happy with her upcoming future rather than her established past. This does create the conflict for the film, as essentially it is a battle between your past self versus the person you want to be, with the struggle on what should be important to keep. Even introducing a MacGuffin device being Riley's core sense of self, which it does seem like to be a little bit of a tack on last minute to the film's lore, but one could say the argument was that it popped out after the events of the last film and it was just always there. Moving into the actual new emotions, Anxiety was well done, as she was sort of a mash between a primary villain to a supporting protagonist. Even seeing her rationalize her decisions was a nice touch to showcase that the character isn't trying to be evil, but only that she believes that the end result will justify the choices. It goes into the great conversation where her actions do not perceive her as being bad, only to be focused on the mission at hand and whatever it takes to complete it. Maya Hawke delivered in her role and her choice of voice. It really took me a little bit of time to figure out that it was really her after hearing her just prominently in Stranger Things. Envy is probably the cutest looking character of all the emotions now, having a big eyes sort of face to really lower your perspective of her. She has a feisty energy to her, as well as delivering some of the cringiest actions for the picture, so a nice balance of both. As for embarrassment and ennui, they don't really do so much. They're merely there to support Anxiety's plans while also bringing in a little bit of their flair as well. Embarrassment was relatable to look at for his actions and further up running away, and ennui was probably my least favorite of the nine in my opinion. Did probably the least and only having one outstanding moment throughout the entire story. The crux of the story is being the slow realization from both Joy and Anxiety's perspective that both of their ways are wrong and they have to think about what's best for Riley moving forward together was very noted. Especially by the time Joy and the others return back to base as Anxiety is literally self-imploding was such a powerful moment, as how many times have we experienced that? A moment where the world just stops and we just freeze in panic on what had just happened. Where should we go? What is going to happen next? That moment where the world on you just stops and the rest is flying all over the place, I can recall those feelings when I went through mine. Even in animated form, they still nailed it. And it was needed for everyone to be on the same page, to see how Riley, who in a way kind of made her own decision for once without the need of her emotions for a moment. It was a bit powerful for this crucial part in her life, and it made it even more impactful for the film to showcase that. Inside Out 2 in some regard may be seen as a cash grab from Disney and Pixar, in which it worked if it was their true underlying intentions. But regardless of the final determination, the film once again delivered a beautiful and wonderful take on the inner workings of the mind. It may not be a fully perfect sequel, but it was a worthy sequel to the original. With that being said, I'm giving this film 4 out of 5 stars, or my personal ranking of a large popcorn and a soda. Let me know down below, what did you think of Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2? Did you love it? Did you like it? Let me know down below. I would love to have a conversation with you about it. This is Joe here from ActionX. Thank you so much for watching this episode of After the Theater. Please subscribe down below if you want to see more from us. Please like, favorite, share this review if you want to. It does greatly help us out there. And please follow us on social media to stay up to date with any future videos. But until we see each other again, thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.